Hello everyone. Today we're going to go through workbooks in NetSuite, which is an exciting feature. It's been around for a while, but there's been new enhancements over time, and I thought it's a good opportunity for me to take you guys through how to enable it in your account, how to set it up, and how it works, and how to display it as well. Now, workbooks can be really complex. I'm going to take you through a simple one today to show you overdue debtors. Obviously, this can be adapted to any other searches that you want. In essence, workbooks are the amalgamation of save searches and reports in NetSuite. Lets you create pivot tables and charts and visualize those on your dashboard as well. So in order to enable it, you need to obviously be an administrator. You need to go to Setup, Company, Enable Features. I've already enabled it in this account. Once you're on the Enable Features, you go to the Analytics tab and you click on Suite Analytics Workbook. In order to enable that in any other roles, you do need to go to, obviously in the administrator role, it will be there, but in any other role, you need to go to Perform Search and give the SuiteBooks Analytics role on, give that permission on your role, and then you'll see it. But let's jump straight into it. I've got it in this account. I'll come back to the dashboard once I've gone through how to set up some reports. So if we click on the Analytics tab, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to see workbooks and you're going to see datasets. Datasets is, in essence, where you define the dataset that you're going to be creating your workbook from. Okay, so the workbook is the output of what you are creating, and you can have multiple data sets within the workbooks, and you can have joins, just like you can in searches and reports. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create an invoice aging data set. So when we go to data sets, you'll see all the record types in your system. These are standard and these are custom. And we're going to go to the transaction record type, and it's going to create what's called a data set, transaction data set. This gives you every field that's available on your transaction records. It also pre-populates certain fields on your data set. Now, once you define the fields on your data set, those are the fields that are going to be available when you use your workbook. Any fields that are automatically created are the ones that are highlighted in blue and bold, so we know we've got those. Okay, let's rename this. So you just click on I to rename it. We're going to call this transaction data set overdue invoices on line 1. And we're going to click on, we can add a description as well. And we're also going to click apply. You'll now notice that that name has updated. I now want to add a field to this data set, which is days overdue. So I'm just going to scroll down. I'm going to hover my mouse. I'm going to grab that field and I'm going to add it. And I'm just going to add it to the right. It doesn't really matter where we're adding it at the moment, because we are obviously this is just populating the data set. So the fields that I want, and I'm just going to sort these for my own use, and you can just see I can drag those. I want transaction, I want date, I want entity, I want type, memo. There's not much in the memo, so let's get rid of the memo. So we can just click on remove column. I clicked on these 3 dots to get rid of to remove the column. We're going to get the document ID and get rid of that as well. We got total amount, which is transaction currency. Doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm going to again click on the 3 dots and click rename. And I'm going to call that total amount. And we're going to click OK. And you'll notice that that updates the data set as well. What I want to do as well, just like we would have in a save search, I want to update my criteria. So I only want to select invoices. At the moment, this is selecting every transaction, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to stay on transaction, and we're going to, we've already got type selected. So type will be at the top because that was one of our criteria. There's one of our columns. We're going to move it to the top. It's going to come up with the type we just want to choose invoices. Now, if I click apply and I've highlighted it, it's not going to add it to my criteria. I've got to double click on it. It is then added to the right. That means I can add multiple if you want. It's not just adding one. You click apply, you'll now notice this is only type as invoice. The great thing about that I really like about workbooks is you can actually see the data update in front of you while you're doing this. So therefore we know whether the way we are filtering this is the right way or not. So we've got type as invoice. We also only see that we're dealing with overdue invoices. We only want invoices that are open. Now, the status is not in the blue highlighted. So I've actually got to scroll and look for it. And I know what I'm looking for. So I'm going to look for status, and I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to look for invoices open. I could have searched for it once again, double click apply. You'll now know that we've got invoice open. The other thing we could do, why don't we only choose currency Australian dollars? So let's add another criteria. Just choose Australian dollars, click apply. Okay, we've now got our overdue invoices data set that we are now going to work with in order to create a workbook. Before we do that, we're going to click save. Overdue invoices on line 1, click save. Okay, we'll get a notification that data set has been saved. We can export this data set into a CSV or into an SDF file. The SDF file is the vector diagram file. We can share this as well. We can share it with roles or with employees. So share it in the normal way that you want to share it. Or what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a workbook from this data set. So just click on create workbook, and you'll notice we now go into workbook, which is the visual representation of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename the workbook. We're going to rename the workbook overdue invoices on line 1. And even though it's got the same name, one is a workbook, one is a data set, and I'm going to click apply. Now, there is something that I forgot to do, right? And what I forgot to do is I wanted to add in formulas to actually show, to actually segregate those invoices that are overdue by a certain number of days. So I'll need to go back to my data set to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the data set, you're going to click on open data set. I've now gone back to my data set. You'll notice it's just superimposed on that. And I'm going to add in my formulas. So I'm going to create a brand new formula. The formula name is going to be 1 to 30 days, 1 to 30 days. The formula that I'm going to use, and I've actually got a sheet with all the formulas that I want. It's actually got days open, so I'm not going to use days open. I'm going to delete days open, and I'm going to use days overdue. So days overdue, I'm going to replace that. So this is a classical if-when formula. Case when the days overdue are greater than 30 and less than 31, then display it. When you're creating a formula, we need to change it to float. You can click validate. That will double check that the formula is relevant. So I don't know if you remember, you've ever created formulas in Save Searches, which is really annoying. You create your formula, you have to run your search to see whether it's valid or not. Right here, you can click validate. We know it's correct. We're going to click save. That will then create the 1 to 30 days. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create all the formulas and come back to you. I'm not going to bore you with creating 5 formulas. Okay, you'll now notice that I've created all the formulas. Did that really quickly. And I knew how to create those formulas. I knew what formulas I was looking for. These are the simple if-when formats or case-when in SQL format. If you're not sure how to do this, speak to your administrator or ask us. Obviously, we can help you with that. What we're now going to do is we're going to add these formulas to the, I'm just dragging them in, to the actual data sets, which is really straightforward and over 60. And what you'll notice as well is the data should automatically be automatically be populating. As I said previously, it's fantastic because you can see what you're doing. We're now going to save this data. We're going to save this data set because we don't want to lose what we've got. Okay, we're going to apply it to the workbook because obviously the data set, if you change a data set in a workbook, you don't have to apply it. You can keep updating it. If you want to update it in the workbook, you can update it. So we've now gone back to our workbook and we've now updated that. Okay. Now we've got 3 options within the workbook. We've got a table, which is very similar to what we did. So I'm just going to create click on table, and if you double click on the name, we can do overdue invoices table, and very simply we can just drag the fields that we want. This is asking me, do I want child level or show the hierarchy? So I've got entity, and now instead of dragging everything, I'm only going to drag the fields I want. We want entity, invoices that are less than 0 days, invoices that are 1 to 30, 31 to 60, over 60 days, and let's grab a total as well. So bearing in mind this is a demo account, so most people are really bad payers at the moment, but you can now see that this is a table showing all my invoices, right? and they're overdue. I'm just going to save this so that we've got it. Don't want to lose anything. If I now want to create a pivot table, which is obviously easier to work with from a manipulation perspective, I click on pivot table. Okay. Again, I can rename it overdue invoices pivot. And bearing in mind, the workbook is where you actually work and pivot. You can view this on the dashboard, but this is where we work. This is the live data. So we can click on row. We want entity, which is a row. Again, it's asking me about the child level. I'm going to click apply. Okay. I'm going to leave columns for the time being. And under measures, I'm going to do exactly what we had previously, which was less than 0 days, 1 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, and 60 days and over. And obviously we want our total as well. Okay. Once I've done that, I want to define, I can then refresh it. So I'm just going to click on the refresh button at the top, and that will load my pivot table. And what that does, very similar, obviously, let me save this before I go away, very similar to the table, right? The difference is I can now filter. So I can click on entity and I can say filter entity, give me 1 to 30 days, right? I want to show, and I can apply that. And that will filter and show me the entities, the top 10 entity by 1 to 30 days. So it really is up to you in terms of what you want to filter by and how you want to filter within that tab. I can also create a chart. So if I go and create a chart here, let's create a bar chart. The y-axis again we'll do as the y-axis as the entity. We'll do the series as the 0 to as the actual days, because that's got the data in. So we obviously want the series over 60 days, and total amount will be the measures, right? We can go to properties where we can actually name things. So let's call this invoice aging online 1. And let's call the axis, we can call the x-axis, the y-axis we'll call entity, and the x-axis amount. And let's click on, let's run that and let's see what the bar graph looks like. Now, this is going to be a busy graph, right? Because it's got, this is based on amounts. It's showing everyone that is overdue. So you can obviously customize this as you want. This is obviously just an example of showing you what you can use. And once we save that, once again, you can export, you can print all of these, which is then to CSV. You can export, which is the SVG file, and you can share. If we want to go into our dashboard and we want to now publish these on our dashboard, we can't manipulate them on our dashboard, but we can publish them. You go to personalize, you go to analytics. NetSuite does have some templates which you can use as opposed to recreating it, but you can now see we've got invoices, overdue, pivot, for example. Click save. And that is going to load. Now, we cannot filter this. And again, you can, just like you can in anything in NetSuite, you can right click and it will open up the actual, the customer record. Okay. Or we could go back to setup. We can filter this by chart types. And this has got the NetSuite standard ones. That's why you're seeing so many. And got overdue invoices, chart 1, save. And that will be that busy graph that we saw. I know that's not a relevant graph because there's a lot of info there. This is more just to show you what you can do. If you then want to go and actually manipulate the data, you open up the workbook. I hope that just gives you a taste. As you can see, workbooks are really, can be really in-depth and can be really, but they're really powerful. And it's something that I'm tending to use a lot more than save searches and reports now when reporting and manipulating on my data. If you need any more information on how to set this up, if you need any support on how to customize workbooks, please reach out to us. and we can certainly help you. Have a fantastic day.